The other thing is you have this label here. It's directly lined up with where the bung is, which is real important. Because when you turn this barrel over, you know where all the wine's going to fall out. And so when we empty the barrel, we have a V catcher that catches the wine with a bucket under there, so we don't lose any wine. Because if losing wine is alcohol abuse, and we certainly wouldn't want to do that. I think this racking system makes it really easy to work with.
Let's show them the racking system. You notice there are wheels here. When Chris was putting together Pyramid Cellars, which I'm also involved in, he called me up from a show and said, "Hey Fletcher, I have seen these neatest barrel racking systems." He explained it to me and I understood.
No, I got it. I'm here.
Okay. We can spin these barrels, and this one's full of wine. Traditional racking system is against the far wall.
Yes.
We didn't get our racks in when Matthew started his process for Potomac Cellars, so he had to go traditional over there. To get wine out and to clean any barrel, he's got to take the barrel out of here. We can take wine out, we pump it out, suck it out. But once we suck it out, we need to clean it. So we can fill this with water, spin the barrel upside down, the water comes out, put the gamma jet in, the high pressure thing, clean it, spin it back out. With this system, we never have to take a barrel out of here until we want to change it completely. To give you an idea, conventional racking system, that's very primitive. You noticed some barrels stacked in there on metal racks. Chris had budgeted at Pyramid Cellars about $6,000 to buy all the metal racks for barrels. When he called me up, he said, "I saw this really neat system," explained it to me. It made sense from a labor aspect of working with wines and also aesthetics. These systems are $22,000 versus $6,000. So these are OXO. When Chris used them in Pyramid Cellars, it was the second application in the U.S. for that system and the first application on the East Coast.
And just absolutely wonderful. Just real quick about the porosity and micro-oxygenation. What evaporates out of barrels is water. So if you think about making a sauce or a stew or a soup, when you reduce flavors by heating it up, you concentrate flavors, you concentrate aromas. That's what barrels do for winemakers, is they concentrate flavors and alcohol and textures inside the barrel. And that's what they do over time. It's not something you can do real quick, and that's why aging in barrels is making wine that our palates are good for. I just want to say, and Fletcher, I'll let you know, we had these are all brand new barrels, which we had shipped over here. American oak goes to France. The cooperage is located in Cognac. They're a 5th generation business. They're French, so Chris would probably say more about that than I will. They do a pretty good job. They make the wine that we hope that you like. And that's pretty much the cooper that we go with. This system over here of brand new barrels sometimes leak, okay? This is an important point. Is we had a guy come out from Bouchard, which is the distributor of these barrels, to fix the leaky barrels that we had. You can see where some of them have leaked. So he came out, and in order for him to pressure test them, we took the wine. Rob and I were here one day, took the wine out of 13 barrels, he pressure tested them, found out they weren't leaking anymore. Sure, no problem, washed them, put them back up, filled them back up with wine. Only one barrel, one white barrel was leaking. It was that one, right there on the corner. All right? There were 4 barrels here. In order for us to get to the barrel that was leaking, we had to take the wine out of every barrel on top, 1, 2, 3, to get to the bottom barrel. And we had to empty them for no reason other than just to get that one. Carry them out and empty that barrel so that he could pressure test it. And when you know, it was that one was the one that was leaking. And that one, there's a difference in size in these barrels. Those are 60-gallon barrels, and the one that was leaking was 70. We didn't have a barrel to put the wine back in. Did you hear this story? Yeah, so we finagled and made it work. That barrel had to go, the guy who fixes them is in North Carolina. He's took it back to North Carolina, he's going to bring it back. So I cannot say, not only does this system look good, but for what I do, a lot of my day is spent doing, working with barrels, working with wine. This makes my job not only much more time efficient, but much, much easier on my back. And also, we don't have to bring a forklift in here to, like with the Western Squares where you have to lift the barrels up and down off racks to get to them. It's a wonderful system, and the more I work with it, the more I like it. And it's one of those little things you never think about until you actually have to see it, and it's really cool. So I'll let Fletcher go back with what.
How do you identify what's like, what you've done to it?
Oh, this is a great question.
There's no lighting.
This is on the side here. This is a different system than what I use. This is obviously French. This is CF1-1. Cabernet Franc Lot 1. We have different lots of fruit come in and processed at different times. And the -1 means dash. This is the first barrel. And the next one, this is the second barrel, Petit Verdot. Third lot, and that's another very interesting story, which I won't go into right now. Where I work, because I can't see very well, I have to wear my glasses, I put big pieces of tape on there, and in the back, Rob has a book, and Matthew has a book. Every time we touch the wine, every time we make an addition, every time we move the wine, every time the wine is topped, I write down the day it was and what I did. Because I don't even know how many barrels are in here. I have 182 barrels in the barrel room, and they all start to look alike after a while. And days start to run together. If you know that you need to top every 2 weeks. 3 weeks can go by before I realize it's 2 weeks. So I keep a note of when the wines are topped, what's been done and what's been done when. And when the wine gets moved, I'll change the date on there, on the barrel, because I have the dates on all my barrels as well. So that's another thing that we have to keep track of. Some people use computers. As you can see by my computer presentation, I'm not as good as I can be. But keeping track of what goes on, like Fletcher says, going through and tasting, also it's important to be proactive, because it's a lot easier to take care of a problem when it just starts than it is to try to fix it after it's gone too far. So we go through and taste. We go through periodically and test the pH of the wine to see if it's okay, because we can fiddle with that. We've had a situation where we've had a problem with wine before we bottled it. As a person who also helps bottle the wine, I'd rather do that, have that problem a couple weeks before we bottle than the day before we bottle. So we try to keep track of things that way as well. And the other thing is it does gets time to get ready for bottling. We have all these barrels, individual barrels of individual wines. Different barrels, different wine, the same wine in different barrels of different oak, different aged oak, are going to have different characteristics. And there's a reason why we'll use different ages and different oaks for the same wine, because each one of those subtle differences, when you blend them back together in the tank before you bottle, are going to increase the complexity and hopefully the quality of that wine. So before we bottle, we'll blend all those individual barrels into one lot, and hopefully it will be a better wine by being in separate, different containers.
How do you keep track of how many times you've used it?
How many times we use it? That's kind of up here. That's something I've been trying to learn a lot about in the past couple of months, because of how many times we've used it. Is we go by every barrel that we have at Pyramid Cellars, like these barrels with plaques on them. Those are 2006 vintage. You know that that's a 2006 barrel, and that is so you know how many years it's been used. How many times it's been used is equally as important, and that's what's in the book in the back, and that's what's on the label. But in the book in the back, this barrel has already been used twice this year. It's already been racked and returned twice. So there's been 2 different wines in that barrel. And as it gets closer to bottling time, it will be up to 5 or 6 different wines, depending on whether or not it's been racked and returned. And that's a big important thing too, is to know how many wines. There's a very good chance that there'll be 2 different vintages in that wine, because as this wine gets bottled and next harvest comes in, there might be an overlap. And this might have 06 and 07 in it for the same year, at the same time. Actually, because this is new, it's not as important as it is for me over there, but it makes a big difference. And it also makes a big difference in thinking I've got a lot of Cabernet Franc, and you'll taste an example of the Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc is a wine that you do not want to leave in new oak. You typically don't want to age in new oak, because it's going to overpower the subtleties of Cabernet Franc. But if you do have it in new oak, you don't want to leave it too long. So you have to keep in mind how many barrels do I have in new oak? How many barrels do I have in neutral oak? and when should I move that and then move the Merlot into it. So it's also like knowing how many tanks, how many barrels, and how many big plastic containers you have if it doesn't fit, in the back of your head, and also written down for when you start, because it's a one big long circular process. It doesn't start or end at a particular spot. Once you have wine in the cellar, it keeps going. I mean, there's not a place where one stops and the other, okay, we're done with harvest, okay, that's it. Because even now, even before Thanksgiving, before the last wine from 2006 vintage was put in barrel, I'm thinking of 2007 harvest. And that goes all the way back to vineyard management, vineyard maintenance, what kind of grapes we're going to get, what was the quality of grapes that we got from X, Y, and Z vineyard last year. That's going to affect everything at the beginning of this season. And that's what the idea of next August, if they're going to make sparkling wine at Winery at the Grange next year, beginning of next August, Fletcher, Chris, me, Rob, are going to be walking around the vineyard, probably Pyramid Cellars vineyard, tasting, testing Chardonnay grapes, because we picked those earlier for sparkling wine. All these little small details, I mean, it's amazing. And when you ask a question, how many times is a barrel going to use? And how many times are you going to wash it? How many times the barrel is going to use is going to affect how quickly those pores get clogged. Once the wine goes in and out, you put wine in. If the wine stays in there and settles, these pores down here clog. But if you take another wine out of a barrel, it's got sediment suspended in it. It's going to fill it all the way up, and that sediment's going to clog these pores. So there's arguments that say if a barrel's used 2 or 3 times just in one season, these pores are clogged. Which comes back to the reason of why I spent such a long time with the Game Agent now. Because the more I wash them out now, the longer these barrels will last for what I need them to do.